My name is Brian Johnson, and in fact, I'll go ahead and switch over and you can see my lovely face here. I've been working with Amazon sponsored products for about a year and a half. I've been selling on Amazon for about 3 years, and I've been selling on eBay. I was selling on eBay for about 6 to 7 years prior to Amazon. So as far as e-commerce, very good. As far as e-commerce, probably a good 10 to 12 years now that I've been in e-commerce online in general. So got a pretty solid background as far as that goes. The last year and a half, I dedicated completely to sponsored products as well as Amazon's marketing services. I'm also in the software development side of the house. So this what we're basically trying to do here, this is primarily educational. I will mention as far as what I'm working on as far as I do have a course, I do have a consulting agency, and I do have software. This is not a pitch for software. This is simply just bringing you information. Nir specifically asked me to come out to speak to you. He trusts me, I trust him. We've been working together as part of the Sponsored Products Academy, as well as direct one-on-one coaching and training as far as some of the more advanced concepts when it comes to sponsored ads. And so one of the things that, it's been a great opportunity for me to work with him. Oops, sorry, my background screens are screwing up here. To get to start to work with him, and I look forward to obviously working with the rest of you, whatever that touch point may be. Obviously, I think Nir is probably going to be point of contact on that. But anyway, so let me go ahead and jump in here and talk about the actual, get into the meat of this, into the content as far as sponsored products. Kind of give me an idea as far as where you're at in your Amazon business. 0 would be you haven't even gotten started. 1 is you think you're pretty early as far as selling on Amazon. 2 would be more intermediate, and 3 would be advanced. I kind of want to get an idea as far as where everybody's at. Okay, so awesome. Okay, so we're basically, we've got a very broad view. Awesome, perfect. Okay, so so for those who are still getting started, there's going to be some terminology that I might run through pretty fast because we're trying to keep this fairly short. But there's going to be some terminology that we're going to run through fairly fast, and I apologize. These are things that hopefully I can provide in some of the obviously we'll make sure that any additional questions get answered after I'm done with my few talking points, and then obviously follow up with Nir's for additional education in order to essentially help you learn sponsored ads when it comes to Amazon. Let me jump in here to the next slide. Can you see the slides that I'm showing here? Is that coming through clearly? Like right now, you should see a slide that says starts with sponsored ads are not for sales. Cool. Okay, awesome. So I open with that statement because to clear a misconception that is very common among sellers on Amazon is they look to the pay-per-click advertising available through sponsored product ads simply just in order to sell their product. And I argue that that is not the primary purpose. Yeah, it's an add-on bonus that you have, but it's not the primary goal, in my opinion, and certainly not what I teach is the primary goal when it comes to the purpose of sponsored ads. In fact, the sales or the units sold as a result of sponsored ads, or as the PPC advertising, only accounts for about an average of 20% of your overall sales, meaning the other 80% requires you to be showing very well or being shown well at all for your target keywords on Amazon. Now, I see the question. I'm kind of catching some of these questions. They fly by as far as, is that a fact as far as the 20%? So the 20% is based off of observing several hundred accounts that we've worked with, that I've personally worked with an agency. So it's more of observation as opposed to a statistical metric that is provided by Amazon. There are some sellers who have 5 to 15%. There's some who run 30 to 50% in their advertising as far as the structure. But when it comes down to it, most of the ones we see average about 20%. give or take. So it's just more of an average. It's not, it's not a target that you need to be at. It's simply just an observation based off of seeing a lot of sales accounts. Cool. So then I'm glad you're asking those kind of questions, though. Yeah, don't just take every word that I say as fact. Absolutely challenge me. I appreciate that. So the primary purpose that I see with advertising on Amazon is to really identify the target audience. And what I mean by that is most private label sellers come on to Amazon not having a product already. They're discovering a product. They're looking for an opportunity to source and sell a product. And so oftentimes, we don't know what the product is. We don't know who the audience really is. We can do keyword research and we can have an idea that, somebody who sells a water bottle, for instance, might be interested in fitness or health or something like that. But we really don't know all of the search terms that the average person, and that can vary from one marketplace and one language, as you know, it's going to vary from marketplace to marketplace and language to language, as far as the terminology that a shopper might use in order to look for a product like yours, as well as convert to a saleable product like yours. So I see the biggest advantage that Amazon gives us, because they don't tell us, and this is part of because their own system, the way Amazon set this up, is because we can't tell which keywords converted to a sale for the organic sales. And I'm saying the organic sales are basically those that are not through advertising. Those are where a shopper comes on to Amazon, searches for a product, sees a product listing, maybe not a sponsored ad, sees a product listing, clicks through, purchases that product. I consider that to be an organic. And then the organic search results are all of the normal product listings that show up as a result of somebody doing a keyword search. The advertised or sponsored ads, of course, the ones that come up on the top above those normal listings, the organic listings, off to the right in that vertical column called the right rail. And then also sometimes they've got them in the middle, sometimes in the bottom. There's also other ads that show up that are part of other advertising programs that Amazon offers. But for sponsored products, generally, most of the time we spend focused on those ads that are either in the top, middle, or bottom of the organic search results, or on the right rail, that right column to the right of the search results. So what we're trying to do then is, when we advertise, because Amazon doesn't tell us as far as what the keywords are for the sales that we get from an organic or natural listing conversion, the only information that we have in order to research what our shoppers are actually using, the terminology that they're using, is through sponsored ad advertising. And so what we're going to do is we run the advertising in order to discover what those are. And that's not simply just running an automatic campaign, because the automatic campaign is very limited in what it's going to find. It's going to find maybe the top 30 search terms that it expects is likely to get the highest click-through rate, or basically a mouse click, from a shopper, the highest click-through rate for your particular product based off of the information and the past advertising history that it has on your product. So it takes time to develop that profile of a product ad so that it knows what to expect from that product ad and whether or not to show it higher or lower. So ultimately, what our end goal then is to find out exactly what terminology, not just what we think, not what our competitors are using in their content, but what shoppers are actually using to search for, to find our product, to convert to our product. Therefore, we know which specific search terms are more likely to result in a sale for our specific product. And when we find that out, we use those specific keyword phrases in our content, especially the highest converting keywords, we put into things like our title or our bullets or our description, as well as the back-end search term fields of our listing. Having those keywords in our content, both the front end and the back end of our product listing content, allows Amazon to make a relevance connection. So a relevance connection, just to kind of explain, give you a little bit of background as far as just kind of a summary, I guess, as far as how the ad auction works. So Amazon's ad auction is a two-part system. And I'm not showing it on the screen, but I'm just going to kind of tell you here how it works. There's two parts to it. You have the first part, which is a filtering mechanism. The filtering mechanism disqualifies advertisers from showing the ad at all. So certainly that's a troubleshooting step is if you are bidding on a keyword and you're not getting any impressions at all for that keyword, or you're not seeing your ad show up anywhere, even though you search across multiple pages, you don't see your ad show up anywhere, then likely what's occurring is Amazon is in the first half has filtered you out as being one of two things, either not qualified to run an advertisement or not relevant to what the shopper is looking for. So by relevance, we're saying that if a shopper searches on Amazon for water bottle and you're selling a television set, those two are not going to be relevant because they're going to be in different categories. They're going to have different keywords and different content in the product listings. And even if your ad was showing to advertisers who looked for, or to shoppers who searched for water bottle, and you're selling a television, it's unlikely that a shopper is going to click onto your advertisement because they don't consider it relevant to the search that they're trying to, what their buyer intent is, what they're trying to search for. So Amazon understands that. Amazon wants the best experience for the shoppers. They want to make sure that the content that they're showing has one of two things. It's either likely to convert to a sale or likely to convert to a click. In both cases, it's making the experience for the shopper so that they see relevant results when they search on Amazon. And the most important thing to Amazon is to make sure that the shopper doesn't leave Amazon and go somewhere else that's easier to use. So that's why they put these rules and these algorithms in place, these systems in place, in order to try to control that and to reward listings and advertising that basically that connects with the shopping audience the best. As far as the question, as far as what does disqualified stand for in Amazon's eye, what can make you disqualified? So disqualified would include things like you don't have the buy box. And most people think that just simply because you own your own private label listing, you don't actually own it, you rent it from Amazon technically, but just because you created the listing and you're the only seller on that listing, that you always have the buy box, which is not the case. First of all, there's certain criteria that you still have to qualify for in order to have the buy box, meaning by default, when a shopper goes to your listing, you automatically have the yellow add to cart button to the right of your product. The alternative to that would be essentially a link or a button that states this product is available from these sellers. Now, if somebody clicks on that, the button that says, or it says, if a shopper clicks on the add to cart button, if that's being shown, then automatically it's going to default to you selling your product. Amazon sponsored ads only run when you have the buy box, and it automatically turns off when you lose that buy box. A hijacker coming on and taking control of the buy box would basically trigger you losing the buy box, and therefore your advertisements would discontinue running. Sometimes there's a delay, 4 hours or even a day before your ads stop running. But in the meantime, you're always going to have that. So the other thing might be if you are selling a product that doesn't qualify for, that cannot be advertised, and that could be things like adult products or certain jewelry or watches. There's certain product niches or product categories that are not allowed to advertise on Amazon. So then the second part, so assuming we get past the first part where our listing is in, so for instance, if somebody does a search for, let me kind of show you an example here. Actually, let me not get distracted with showing on Amazon. So imagine you do a search on Amazon for water bottle, and the results that come back, there's two things that come back, or three things technically. So you're going to have a listing of products that should be directly relevant, in most cases, to a water bottle. Two, on the left-hand side, you're going to have a limited list of categories or departments that are shown that Amazon considers to be most relevant to that search term, water bottle. Typically, that's going to be things like health and household, sports and outdoors, you know, categories like that. They're generally not going to show it for beauty or cosmetics, you know, or something like that. They're generally going to show the categories. The only ones that are going to be visible initially are the ones that Amazon considers to be most relevant to that particular search term. So then the third thing that's going to show up, of course, is the advertising that shows up. The advertising should also be relevant to that search term. So assuming that we get past the first half of the ad auction, where we are qualified to run advertising, and second is our listing or the product that we're selling is directly relevant to what the terminology that the shopper is using, then not only can our advertisement show, well, in this case, for this algorithm, the advertising would show. It's a different algorithm that decides whether or not a product, basically an organic listing, as far as whether or not your product shows up in the organic listing. The organic listings are primarily based off of the number of units that you sell. The advertisements are based primarily on your click-through rate of your advertisement. So there's a bit of history there that has to accumulate. There's a high percentage as far as people, the number of people who search for a search term and click on your advertisement is going to increase your average click-through rate. Let me get a drink here really quick. Hold on. So then the second part of this, the second part of the ad auction is going to be a sorting mechanism. So what the sorting does is it decides in which order competing advertisers are showing in the first position, second position, third position, and so on. This is primarily based on, there's a number of factors, but one of them has to do with essentially deciding the quality of your advertising campaigns, how long those advertising campaigns have been running, how many total clicks that advertising campaign has accumulated over time, and as well as what the percentage of the click-through rate is. They combine that along with the bidding, as far as the amount that you bid, in order to come up with a score that they use to sort the advertisers from 1 to, I don't know, 100, however many they happen to be showing for a particular product. Is the screen okay? I mean, okay, so we're still on the topic we're talking about. We kind of went off screen here. So the screen you should see right now, it starts out with sponsored ads are not for sales. Right now we're talking about a topic that's actually not showing, and that is between sponsored ads and the #1 structure campaign. So we're kind of off topic, but it's important to understand how the ad auction works. So the first part is the filtering. Second part is the sorting. The second part, mainly what you want to try to do is continue to increase the average click-through rate for your campaigns in order to achieve a higher quality score for your advertising campaigns. Similar concept to if you've ever advertised on Google, they use quality scoring as well. So that's the way basically the Amazon does it. Now they continue to tweak those algorithms pretty much on a monthly basis, and we try to keep up with those and we try to report those back. So we do try to keep up with those. But as Amazon is constantly changing it. So now I'm going to move on to the #1. Let me ask you if do you have any questions currently about the ad auction before I get into structuring campaigns? When you say where can we find those reports, which reports are we referring to? The search reports? So search term reports are going to be part of the advertising reports screen, which is within Seller Central. So it's going to be, so advertising reports in general is going to be Seller Central reports, advertising reports, and then there's a selection of different reports that are commonly used, including search term report, which is probably one of the most popular, most used for what we're trying to do as far as identifying the target audience. The search term report is definitely what you want to look at. Oh, I see what you're saying. As far as I try to report on those. Okay, so so basically, what I do is I communicate that back directly to my clients and my direct students, and those that I work with and coach directly. In this case, that's going to be Near. So Near is going to be the point of contact for those some of the new updates that come out of my agency and our training. And however Near you want to communicate that or facilitate that, just let me know and I'll help you with that. Okay, so well, I would say the circle. I mean, it sounds like you're already in the circle because you're here, first of all, and so you're at least plugging into those that have the information. So, like I said, we're not pitching anything, so we're simply just saying, I mean, I guess technically we could say that we've got the software that you can start using to help facilitate all this. However, we're not pitching a group or a course or anything like that, so this is just strictly informational. Okay, so specific campaigns or specific questions, let's go ahead and save the questions to after the presentation that are specific to a scenario that you have, because otherwise I'll get way off track and we'll never finish. So yeah, just save that one for a little bit later. Thank you. All right, so let me go ahead and jump into the structured campaigns so we can keep things moving here. So when it comes to structured campaigns, I like to structure the campaigns, meaning set the campaigns, create campaigns and ad groups for the purpose of control. The way that I generally start out with is I'll set up an automatic campaign. This is an automatic campaign is where Amazon controls when to show your ads based on the search terms that a shopper uses. Now, because an automatic campaign does not include keywords, we don't target keywords, therefore the reporting does not for an automatic campaign only includes search terms. It does not include keywords, and therefore in, like, say, the search term report, a common question is, why is there an asterisk in place of the keyword in an automatic campaign? That's because there is no keyword to reference. There's nothing that you're bidding on as a keyword in order for it to match up to it. So it's going to show you the customer's search term, which is most important toward our primary purpose of identifying that target audience and the terminology that they use. So that initial automatic campaign, I typically set up, technically I set up two. There's different ways you can do this, but one of the things that I try to do initially is the first one that I set up for, I only run it for 1 day, just 1 day. And that automatic campaign is going to have a very high bid to it, like $5, $6 bid. That's why I only run it for 1 day. Did I mention 1 day? Okay. So the reason I only run it for 1 day is on the high bid on this $5 or $6 bid automatic campaign when I first start out with a product is for two primary reasons. One is I want to test to see what the PPC competition is. In other words, what I'm looking for is I'm identifying what the bid range is for my type of product. So Amazon's probably going to show my ad for probably 20, 30, 40 different search terms. And in the course of that, in the ad reporting, which usually takes about 2 days in order to actually get reported because there's a delay, in the search term report, campaign performance report, you'll find that there is an average CPC or cost per click. That's essentially what you've ended up paying on average for each of the clicks that your ad was shown on and where a shopper actually clicked on your advertisement. And so that's going to have a huge range. That may be, you might have, a $4 click in there because you're bidding so high, because you've got a keyword that's highly competitive and it has a high perceived value. It's going to demand a higher cost per click or a higher bid in order to see that. So that's basically a high value search term. The PPC competition that I'm testing is seeing what range that I'm in. Am I selling a product that averages around 30 cents per click, or am I averaging in a product that averages over $2 per click? I need to know kind of what ballpark range of bid that I need to be in order to compete. And usually the higher the competition, the higher the average bidding is. So I run that first one for 1 day. And then I drop the bid down to usually half of what that average is. So in other words, let's say that I find that most of the bids are in the $1.50, $1.50 range as an example. I might drop my automatic campaign down to 50 cents or 75 cents. So definitely below what that normal range is. And there's a specific reason I do that, and I'll come back to it here in a minute. Let me grab your questions here really quick. As far as the campaign budget goes, so because usually typically I start out with maybe like a $10 or $20 a US $10 or $20 budget, just to start out with. I don't go more aggressive with my budgets until I get into my manual primary campaigns where I'm focused on my converting keywords and I want to spend more on. But for my automatic discovery campaign and my manual research campaign, I usually keep the daily budgets down fairly low. Now, a daily budget is not a cap. Don't confuse a cap with the daily budget, because it doesn't limit how much you spend each day. It's simply just a 30-day average per day. So for instance, if you set a budget for $10 times 30 days, you've basically authorized Amazon to spend up to $300 for the month. They could spend $100 one day, they could spend $5 the next day. It depends on how much volume of the keywords that you're targeting. So one of the things that, Near, I see you pulled away all the questions. Okay, that probably is more distracting. I guess we'll save those for later. Okay. So then the auto campaign that I start out with that has the high bid, I'm going to reduce that because I'm only going to run it for 1 day, and then I'm going to reduce that down to, like, say 50 cents, 75 cents, basically half of what my core bid range is that I've discovered so far from running that first day. Sometimes you can't even really tell what that is, so I kind of have to guess initially in the first couple of days, because again, the advertising can take a couple of days to actually get to the search term report, as an example. So based off of what I find from the automatic campaign, Amazon is going to show my ad for keyword or for search terms that are directly relevant to my product. They're going to show for search terms that are relevant to my audience. They're going to show search terms that are actually the ASIN number for a competing product listing where my ad showed up. And it's going to show, and of course, it's also going to show for competing brand names. And finally, it's going to show also for search terms that may be seemingly completely irrelevant to audience or product. And that's usually because Amazon is either confused by the content of your listing, the category that you're listing in, or there might be some other interference from, basically making bad connections between a word that might be in your content or might be even in a competitor's content. If you're in the same category, sometimes it can get confused as far as some of the words. That's usually a smaller problem. It usually doesn't happen that way. More than likely, the search terms that they're showing are as a result of the same kind of audience, because they're tracking a lot more information than we are. So the same kind of audience is using that search term and may actually be purchasing products using that search term, they may also have a history of purchasing a product like yours, and that's why that audience relevant search term is showing up in your ad reports. So don't completely discount it as being it's completely way off. It could simply just be, you know what, maybe that's another product that somebody in my audience, a shopper within my target audience, may actually be shopping for also. Sometimes you can find, discover new products that you can go after. So once we get past that initial automatic campaign, we run the first one at the high bid for 1 day, and then we drop the bid way down and we continue to run it. And I continue to run it, permanently. That just continues to run forever for me. Because there's the specific ways that I continue to use the automatic campaign, and I'll get into that later if we have time. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a research campaign. I generally try to limit the number of campaigns that I have to just 3. An automatic campaign, a research campaign, and a primary campaign. The research campaign is primarily, it's going to be the low performance, low click-through rate, high impression, low conversion type of research campaign that is going to be ideal for doing bulk keyword research, where you're going out and using some of the keyword research tools to find 50 or 500, even 5,000 keywords in order to test to see if you can find long tail or more descriptive keywords that might attract your audience and ideally convert to your product. The way that I set up that manual campaign is I typically create 2 ad groups. I create a broad match ad group and a phrase match ad group. You can create an exact match, but I consider that optional when I'm doing research. I do use all 3, a broad, phrase, and exact match ad group when I am creating my primary campaign. But on the research campaign, I am creating a broad match campaign, a broad match ad group within that campaign. So I've got 1 manual campaign. I typically call it my product or my ASIN, along with research basically. And I generally, when I've got different products, completely separate products, not simply just slight variations as far as color or size. When you've got slight child variations of color or size, for instance, I might combine those into the same campaign. If I've got different products, I'm going to put them in their own campaign. So in that manual research campaign that I have for my first product, as an example, I'll create an ad group for my broad match terms, and any keywords that I put into that broad match ad group, I'll set as broad match type. Same thing, I'll create a phrase match, and any keywords that I put into the phrase match ad group, I'll put as phrase match type. So broad to broad, phrase to phrase. Got it. So the keywords that I put in there, I'm going to test in both the broad and the phrase match. And generally the keywords that I'm pulling come from 2 different places. One is the automatic campaigns are going to come back with search terms that maybe they've got a very high click-through rate, and therefore suggesting that there's a connection between the audience searching for that product and the product that I'm advertising. So a very high click-through rate on a keyword. And when I say high click-through rate, generally I'm looking for something above a 0.4% CTR number. So 0.4% click-through rate. Generally, if you have more than 1,000 impressions, would be statistically more accurate. And the second place, in addition to the high click-through rate, is also, of course, any search terms that actually converted to a sale. I'm going to copy those over to my manual campaign as a keyword, and I'm going to duplicate the keywords both in the broad match and the phrase match. Common question is, don't you compete with yourself for keywords? No, you don't actually. On Amazon's, on the sponsored products platform, you don't actually, the traffic gets shifted from one keyword or another, or it might split between the 2. You don't artificially, like for instance, one campaign or one keyword does not artificially raise your bid cost because you're bidding on more than one location. So you don't compete with yourself in that way. You are competing against other advertisers who may have a higher bid, and therefore you have to raise your bid in order to compete, in order to get the ad position you want, but you're not going to compete with yourself in that way within the same account. So the second major place that I put in keywords from, as far as the manual research campaign, is the bulk keyword research. I'm using external keyword research tools. Whether I am, I mean, you could do it on Amazon. You could take your primary keyword, you could put it into the search bar and look at all the suggestions that Amazon comes back with. That's free. You can copy and paste all of those, all day long and just come up with different creative ways of doing it. If you're going to go for more of the paid options, consider tools like Merchant Words, or there's a helium-10 magnet. There's also, if you go into more advanced, if you know how to actually do it, there's specific ways that I teach as far as using like tools like Keyword Inspector, which typically spy on either your competitors' product listing, or their organic product listings, or their advertising. There's different reports that are available within Keyword Inspector. There's also other tools, keyword.io, Scientific Seller. I mean, there's plenty of them out there. What I generally don't do is I don't rely on the keyword search volume that most of these report, simply because those are third-party tools. And those third-party tools they're using Google search volume. They're not using an e-commerce search volume as Amazon would provide, because Amazon doesn't provide that within sponsored ads, or basically they don't provide that information publicly. So I'm going to basically use my target, the keywords that I know, like if I have a product like water bottle, I might do a keyword search of water bottle, and a keyword research tool is typically going to come back anywhere from, it could come back with 10 keywords, it could come back with 10,000. I don't filter. I test everything. An ad group will hold up to 1,000 keywords, so if you want to be really aggressive about it, if you've got 10,000 keywords you want to test, I do create 10 broad match ad groups and 10 phrase match ad groups, all with, it's not duplicating, it's basically using 1,000, but I'll go that far if I want to be very aggressive as far as my keyword research. Generally, I recommend, though, is that you initially target maybe 50 to 200 initial keywords to research. And then if you want to get more aggressive, or you're more experienced with your keyword research, then go after the thousands of keywords. But that's more of an advanced topic there. What I'm expecting to see by advertising, and generally on the manual research, for instance, if I've determined that, from my automatic campaign, for instance, if I've determined that most of my keywords require a $2 cost per click, for instance, I might set my broad ad group and my phrase ad group default bid to $2 as an example. Amazon will naturally sequence the match types first with the most targeted, which is exact, followed by phrase, the next targeted, and then the least targeted, which would be broad. Ultimately it's going to make a choice as far as which one it's going to show. This summer it's been favoring phrase match since an update that occurred, an algorithm update that occurred in June. It's been favoring phrase match, but they tend to change that throughout the year. So that's why I typically test broad and phrase, and then in my primary campaign, broad, phrase, and exact. So I'll pass my keyword research and my automatic campaign search terms that I find that have a high click-through rate or a high conversion rate. I'll pass those over to my research campaign, in addition to my bulk keyword research, using keyword research tools into my research campaign. Running that for 2-3 weeks, constantly checking. I would say probably check every couple of days to make sure you don't have any runaway search terms, and I'll show you how to do that in PPC Scope. But the easiest way to do that is just look for ones that are getting a lot of clicks but are not converting. Those are usually ones you want to do like a negative exact match, or on the search term that's causing just kind of a runaway ad spend. As far as the primary campaign, I got to pick up the pace on this, huh? So the primary campaign, I'll generally do 3 ad groups: broad, phrase, and exact. I'll generally be I have a higher default bid than I have in my research campaign. That way, Amazon's going to favor the higher bid, and so favor showing the traffic, the ad traffic, to my primary campaign. And then following that, if I didn't already have that keyword in my primary campaign, then the traffic is going to go to the keywords that are next available, which are in my research campaign at the next level of default bid. And if I still don't have anything, then maybe it'll show up on the automatic campaign, which is the lower bid. Yeah, did you have a question? I saw you were kind of moving things around, trying to get the questions back, but I just want to make sure you weren't trying to get my attention. Since I don't see the questions anymore, which is probably good for limiting distractions until I get through this. So I would say that, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one here, and then any questions we get out of this we'll open up for the Q&A. Okay, so part of both the research campaign and the manual and the primary campaign, just kind of jumping back on this really quick here. The research campaign is primary for keyword research. The primary campaign is typically for my converting keywords, the ones that are, basically those are my income generators. Those are the ones I want to protect the most, make sure I optimize the best, and I want to make sure that I feed, assuming that I've got decent ROI, I want to make sure that I have a higher ad budget in my primary campaign, and where automatic and research campaigns are usually fairly limited, $10 or $20 per day on my research campaigns. Okay. So that was actually probably, thank you, Nir. So as far as the chat goes, I'm going to, hold the questions for now. Thanks. Okay, you already addressed that. Cool. So as far as the next step that I typically go through on this, and that has to do with optimizing the campaigns. Generally, the shortcut, the most easiest to implement, is simply just looking for search terms within your search term report. There's easier ways to do it too within the PPC Scope software if that's something you choose, but a free version, of course, is to use the search term reports that are available in your advertising reports, looking at the search terms that show up and identifying those that have accumulated maybe 5 or 10 or more clicks, yet have not converted to any orders at all. Those are generally ones that are spending your ad budget but are not actually benefiting you. Now, typically, you're going to have to make a choice as far as how you handle those. For most of the search terms that are just spending money and not converting to any sales, you'll want to do a negative exact match. Negative exact match is what affects search terms. Doing things like pausing or archiving or adjusting bid affects the keyword. You can have multiple search terms that get matched up to a keyword. I'm hoping that you're not. Somebody decided they're going to clean the carpets outside of my office here, so I'm really hoping that this doesn't get picked up on the microphone. So I apologize if it does, but I'll continue to go forward here. So when I optimize a campaign, if I'm looking at a search term report as an example, I'm going to look for those search terms that are spending way too much money. I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to look at the ones that are making me the most profit and those that are losing the most profit for me. That's the first 2 things I'm going to look at. The ones that are losing me the most profit, I'm generally going to add those into its specific ad group as a negative exact match, so I can eliminate those from showing up. Now, there are some exceptions to that when it comes to singular versus plural and exact match typing, but in general, you're pretty safe to do a negative exact match without it causing too much harm. I wouldn't recommend doing pausing campaigns, or I'm sorry, pausing keywords until you identify that they are only pulling in bad search terms as an example. Because like I said, a single keyword can pull in multiple search terms. And it may simply just be, you could, what perceived as an unprofitable keyword may actually simply just be one very expensive and very unprofitable search term that you can eliminate, and you can turn around that keyword and make it profitable by itself. I'm also going to try to, certainly, I'm going to do that for, as far as optimization goes, I'm going to do that for both, actually for all three campaigns: the automatic campaign, the research manual campaign, and the primary manual campaign. So the second thing I'm going to do on that had to do with the profitable search terms. When I have profitable search terms, ones that are, basically where I'm making a profit. So if I'm figuring out that, I'm getting a bunch of sales and the cost is low, even if the cost is high, if I'm getting a bunch of sales off of a search term, regardless actually if I'm even making a profit, I'm just making a bunch of sales, I'm going to typically take that search term and I'm going to use that as a seed keyword in order to do more keyword research. Because my logic is, if that's working for me, this one search term is working for me now, what if I can find 10 related other keywords to that search term, and I might be able to increase the visibility that I have with the audience, and therefore increase potentially the number of conversions, the number of sales that I've made. So on one side, I'm eliminating the expensive search terms through using the negative exact match. On the positive side, where I'm making a bunch of, selling a bunch of units through a search term, I'm going to use that in order to make more. All right, so then those are kind of, that's a really basic, there's a lot more to optimization than this, but those are like the most essential tasks that I would do on a recurring, basically on a weekly basis. Now, after a while, and maybe that's a few weeks, maybe that's 2 months, 1 to 2 months, I'm going to start seeing patterns of which search terms are continuing to convert and sell my product. And so the ones that sell the most of those products, I want to use in my listing optimization. In other words, I want to update my product listing in order to target those keywords and those search terms that I already know convert well for my product. I'm not just guessing anymore. I actually have the information as a result of the advertising investment that I've made for the last month or two. The shoppers have told me what terminology that they're using in order to find and to buy the product that I'm selling. Therefore, I want to update my product listing with the highest converting keywords basically the highest converting keywords in search terms that I found as a result of my advertising. Now, before I do that, I want to do a couple of things. I want to check to see where I fit in with the competition. So if you're familiar with the term 800-pound gorilla, it's basically going up against the, it's basically, do you want to pick a fight with somebody small, or do you want to go against the 800-pound gorilla who can beat you up? Probably not. It's just simply just stating, look at your competition. So in other words, take your top 5, top 10, whatever your target search terms that seem like they're converting the best for you. They're their highest performing ones. It doesn't even necessarily, when it comes to optimizing for your organic product listing, it does not have to be profitable on the advertising. It simply just needs to sell a lot of units. So you're looking at the search terms that are selling the most number of units as a result of your observations from advertising. Therefore, you know which specific search terms are converting well for your product. So if you can rank high, get a high organic search position or search result within Amazon for your product listing, not your ad, but for your product listing, for those keywords that you know convert well, then you're likely to be very profitable, and you're focused in on those keywords that you know are going to convert for your product, versus than just guessing based off of what competitors or what popular opinion might state you should try to convert for. And part of that is checking each and every search term run that search term through Amazon, and basically search on Amazon for that keyword, for that search term. And I know I interchange search term and keyword quite a bit. I prefer the term search term because that's actually what the customer used, not simply what we're bidding upon. So I use the search terms that convert the most. I search on Amazon and I check to see, okay, in the category, basically as far as the total number of results that come back. Now Amazon just recently changed it so that they often hide the number of total competing result or competing listings that are returned or are considered relevant to that search term. So the way to work around that is you can actually go into the top level category. Let's say, for instance, the see, actually it's, I don't know if this actually works or not. Let's see if I can get it to show here. No. Open. Okay, I'm not quite sure exactly how to specifically share my as far as like a web browser, but we'll figure that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search on Amazon, and I'm going to look to see how many competing results that I'm working against. Usually that's a number up in the top left-hand corner. Amazon's been hiding that number recently. Basically, it shows like, showing 1 through 16 in 15,000 results. That's what it used to say for that search term. So the way you find out that number now is you can go in, you can click on a master category. Like let's say you're selling that water bottle, for instance, and the categories that come up on the left-hand side, maybe the top category that shows up is sports and outdoors. So you click on that sports and outdoors title, and it'll navigate into the sports and outdoors category. And then each of the subcategories there will show in parentheses the total number of listings within each of those major subcategories. It's not an exact number like you'd have before, but it does at least give you an approximation whether or not you're competing against 500 competing listings for that specific search term that is converting well for you in advertising, or if you're going against 50,000 competing results. Ideally, if you're going to have the best chance of ranking high, having a high search position for your product listing, you don't want to optimize your listing and your title and your bullets and your description for the search term that has 50,000 or 100,000 or even 1,000,000 competing results. You want to go for the ones that have 500 or 2,500, a much lower amount in comparison. Now, it's not going to be necessarily the highest converting, the biggest volume, the shiny object that everybody looks at when they're using tools like Jungle Scout, and they see, people on page 1 are selling $50 million in products every single minute. We're not going for that. Right now we're trying to start by finding a niche within our, basically a fit into our competition where we're not trying to fight for a page 10 listing with a high competition keyword. We are much easier getting on to page 1 or page 2 or even page 3. You still get sales from page 3 for a much lower competitive keyword. Start with that. Start getting your product listing to show up in the top 3 pages for a less competitive keyword that you already know converts to your product, and start getting those sales. Once you start building on that, you start developing cash flow. We're stopping the bleeding. You're actually making money because of your organic listings. And you recall from the first slide, or from the last slide, I guess it is that statistically, like on average, 80% of your sales come through your organic listings. So if you can get a top 3 pages position for a less competitive search term that converts to your product, you're actually going to be selling product compared to trying to fight for a page 10 position for a high competition, very popular search term that such a low position may not get you any sales at all. So go for the smaller wins first build up that experience, and then build on that. Then start developing your listing and optimizing your product listing to start going after some of the more competitive keywords and building up your search result position for those. But start with a small win first and build upon that. So that's what, and then the last piece here, when I say optimize the product listing, that's what we're talking about. We add in those highest converting keywords to your front end content, whether that's your bullets or your description. If it's truly a very high converting keyword phrase, you may consider putting it into your title. I don't take title changes very lightly because they can have such a positive or negative impact. Just changing your title can disrupt a current ad position, or it may, or current organic search result position, I should say. But if you have a relatively low risk because you haven't achieved a high search position for any keywords, then it's an easy thing to do, is to make sure you include the exact search term phrase in that full phrase format in the sequence that is converting so well in your advertising. Put that into your title. If you want to test it first, put it in your bullets or your description. You also want to put in the key. It doesn't have to necessarily be in a keyword phrase as far as your back-end search term fields. So when you're in Seller Central and you're in edit mode for your product, the keywords tab has up to 5 search term fields. You can put in up to 5,000 characters in those. The general practice right now, based off of Amazon keyword indexing and everything, is generally to stick below the 2,000, 2,500 characters. So usually, if you fill up the first, 2 or 3 fields, you're probably good. It's not like it's a problem if you fill up everything, but Amazon is typically only going to look at so much of it and really match up your listing with search results. So generally, I try to put every single common word that I have in all of my converting search terms for my advertising. I want to make sure that those end up in my back-end search term fields. You don't need to repeat. We haven't found any further value as far as putting those into phrase match in the back-end search term fields. We have found value in using the exact phrase of the keyword in your front-end content, title or bullets or description. You don't need to duplicate. I generally don't duplicate any words that I have in my title I don't generally duplicate any keyword phrases that I already have in my title. I don't usually put those in other content locations. I think that's it. I think we can probably transition over to either demo or to, I can show you the last slide. Near, do you want me to show the slide that shows the,
Can you hear me now, by
the different products and organizations that I'm affiliated with? You saw that one?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to just go into basically work on the Q&A?
Q&A, can you hear me, by the way? You can hear me. Okay, cool.
Do that.
Brian,
I will
you hear me?
Scan through some of the questions. Looks like we've got a lot of questions. Okay, we're going to start here. Okay, actually it's not that many. Okay. Okay, I'll try to find the first question here so I don't miss it.
Hi, can you hear me?
There we go. Okay, so when should I start my PPC? Grab a drink here. So, sorry, walking away from the microphone. So a common misconception is that you should wait until you have a bunch of reviews in order to start your advertising. That's based off the concept that you're trying to just get sales for your advertising. If that's your goal, then I would typically wait until you have some social proof, which means you've got at least 10 reviews in order to get people to, basically convince people that your product is worth purchasing in the first place. However, for the purpose of that I teach as far as the basically doing market research or basically audience research, I start it right away before I have any reviews or any sales. I'll go ahead and start out my automatic campaign in order to start getting that competitive PPC market research, as well as identify some of those high value search terms. That's where I run the high bid automatic campaign for one day, and then shift down to a low bid, and then continue to run that. I'm not looking for I'm not expecting sales initially from my advertising anyway, because I haven't identified who my target audience is, and therefore I'm not trying to target them based off of my keyword research nor my listing. So initially I'm just trying to identify who my audience is and how competitive is the advertising in my product niche. So I turn it on right away. Let's see here. As far as pay-per-click, as far as the cost of pay-per-click, it can vary. Yes, it does vary between different locations that the ad is shown on the page. Generally, the first two positions above most of the natural search results or the organic search results are going to be the most expensive, especially if you're using a service like the Amazon automated service like Bid Plus, which I don't actually recommend doing, simply because I think you can do a better job on your own, and it's a very expensive position to be in, especially going into the holidays. That's going to get just insanely expensive. So Bid Plus is Amazon's automatic tool that allows you to pay 150% of your normal bid for a keyword for the right to get into position number one. They can't guarantee which keyword that is, but they can certainly guarantee they're going to charge you up to 150%. So I generally don't use Bid Plus, but if I do bid aggressively, especially on a product launch, I might more in order to be in the first one or two positions. Now, the right rail is, thank you, I appreciate that. So the right rail, which is that vertical column of ads, is typically going to be the next expensive, because typically that has usually 3 or 4 positions. Those are typically going to be the next most expensive search terms, but typically the first 1 to 2 positions are going to be 2 to 3 times the cost per click than other ad positions. So understand that. There's also another value, metric that people often get confused by, and that is the estimated page 1 bid value. I don't use the estimated page 1 bid value in order to set my bids. I actually use it only to see if there's a perceived value of a keyword that's not getting any impressions, which is more of a intermediate to advanced level topic as far as how to handle that. But generally, I start out by guessing. Essentially, I use that initial automatic campaign in order to figure out what the market range is as far as cost per click, and then I pick a number in there, maybe not at the top side, maybe in the middle somewhere, and I just start out with that, and I adjust it from there, based off of what I learn over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so so let me go ahead and switch over to the voice ones here. Okay, so Yanni. Okay, go ahead and ask your question, Yanni. Nope, okay. Maybe that was a test. Okay. Okay, so well, I'll certainly check as far as in the chat here too. Okay, so then on what type of click-through rate would you consider good for a SKU? So generally for a CTR, a click-through rate for a SKU, generally I actually look at it from either a campaign level or a keyword level. So at the keyword level, I'm generally going to look for, and this is just based off of averages across hundreds of accounts that we've worked with, generally I'm looking for a 0.4% to 0.8% is what I would normally expect. If I drop down below about a 0.2%, then generally I'm going to, that's suggesting that it has a very low relevance between my ad and the search term used. If it's well above that, then that's one I want to take a look at, because maybe that one has a higher perceived value or perceived relevance by the shoppers. Kevin, looks like you've got the mic there.
Yeah, try to see if you can ask the question.
No.
No.
Okay, Nir, I don't know if you're gonna handle as far as the Q&A pieces of it.
Yeah, it looks like
I'm not hearing any audio on my side, so I don't know if anybody else is hearing.
No.
Okay, I'll continue to move on with questions here. But I've got no audio coming on my side that I can tell.
Brian? Brian? Hello? You can hear me now, guys? Okay, thank you. Okay, Brian, you're back. Brian, by the way,
the average monthly. Sorry, got things blocking here.
Brian, we cannot hear you.
What would be the average monthly budget for a products campaign after we've stabilized it, based on average competition? That's a very subjective number. So if you have it in your primary campaign, sometimes I might do $50, $100, $1,000 a day. Depends on how aggressive that particular product is. In a primary campaign, I wouldn't be near that aggressive on a research or an automatic campaign. Research or an automatic campaigns, I generally only do like $10 or $20 per day. But I'll get a lot more aggressive when I know that there's if I know there's a positive ROI, I'm going to give them whatever number they want in order to show it as often as possible. Now, Amazon is not big enough yet to spend all of that. It's not near as big as other platforms like Facebook or Google, but it'll continue to grow. It'll continue to get more traffic, and obviously the average cost per click continues to increase month over month as a trend. Okay.
Okay, let's Brian, let's take like four or three more questions. And,
okay, you'll see. Do you make other bid for each ad group, exact phrase, broad? I'm not sure I understand that one. So I'm guessing. So I've taught in the past to have tiered bidding, where I have a higher, to basically reinforce the sequence that Amazon wants for match typing, starting with the exact and followed by phrase, followed by broad. And so I traditionally, I would set the exact higher, slightly higher bid than I would the phrase match, than I would the broad match. And so there would be a tiered bidding there. However, I don't actually teach that anymore, simply because Amazon continues to change the algorithm and the way that they're looking at individual keywords, and so I want more of a balanced playing field. So they're going to generally try to show an exact match first. Exact match is going to be more targeted. And by the way, there's no one match type that is better than the others. I test all three because I don't know which keyword is going to, or which match type is going to fit each keyword's personality, if you will. And I have plenty of profitable keywords that work best in each of the match types, sometimes even two out of the three match types. The daily budget, is it just a number, or does it do something? So it does actually do something. It sets the average pace. Amazon doesn't often spend that unless you're in a very competitive niche, but but you can generally kind of control costs. Like, for instance, if you're very tight on budget, then maybe you set it for a $5 daily budget $5 times 30 is 150, if my math is correct, last time I checked. And so generally they're only going to spend on average about $5 per day. But that's a different scale than if you put in $50 and they decided 50 times 30 is $1,500 and they decide to spend that on the first day. Well, that's something obviously you don't want to have occur.
Okay.
So I generally try to set that. The second thing I usually try to do is beyond the campaign level is in your campaign manager. In the settings for your campaign manager, you can set an account budget cap. That's an actual cap. That's a daily limit that you don't want to spend across all of your ad campaigns. You don't want to spend more than, $200 as an example. Just, whatever that number might be, you can actually set your daily, like completely out of pocket each day. It's actually going to hit that cap and stop running altogether. Now, there's some times where you may run out of budget before you even hit your daily average budget, and sometimes that's just based off of the velocity as far as how your spending is going. Amazon might stop it early. They may also do adjustments later on the day based off of things like click fraud or just general adjustments. Duplicate clicks by the same user will get consolidated later on in the afternoon back into one, and so sometimes you'll see where you'll go out of budget and then all of a sudden you'll see a number later on in the afternoon that's below your actual daily budget. So the reason for that is because Amazon's constantly doing adjustments throughout the day.
Can you hear me?
Okay, so how long does it take for sales information to show up after a click? Generally, you can get it within, sometimes it's as soon as like 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes inside Campaign Manager. Sales information usually takes 2 days. Sometimes it takes even 7 days or even 30 days. It depends on when the shopper actually checks out and the product is considered being fulfilled. So there's different timing that occurs. Probably 75-80%, just kind of a rough number, 75% of the clicks will show up within the first couple of days, most of the time. It usually takes 48 to 72 hours before it actually reflects in the advertising reports. And that's kind of a challenge we have as software developers because we want to show the most current information, but then Amazon provides us, here's all the ads, clicks that you got and impressions you had as early as today, but because our software, for instance, checks a couple of times a day. But the problem is they don't report for sales for an extra 2 days, and so the last day or two within our charts looks like you're losing money, but it just hasn't caught up yet. So it's just a normal thing that all of us as developers have to work with.
Can you hear me? Question mark? Can you hear me?
Okay, hold on, my windows are moving around here a little bit on me. Near, stop moving the windows around. So, all right. So I'm gonna try to get this. So, all right. Let me know when you're done.
Brian, can you hear me? This is Nir. Right? It looks like he dropped. Okay, guys, please say yes or no if you can hear me. Okay, cool. It looks like he dropped for a second. Let's wait a while. Hope he's back. Tell me if you hear me good or you hear me low or high. See that he's trying to reconnect. Thank you.
All right, is my audio back on here? Okay.
Okay, yeah, we hear you, Brian.
All right, so I know there's going to be plenty of other questions. We'll have to kind of circle back around those later on, but Oh, a good clarification on the negative exact match. Put that at the ad group level. Campaign is going to, if you put it at the campaign level, it's going to impact all ad groups, and you may have a positive one that works well in a different match type, which is going to be in a different ad group, and so you don't want to eliminate those by putting it at the campaign level. There's certain situations where you might do that, but negative exact match, place that at the ad group level. Okay, I know there's some questions that we didn't get a chance to answer, but I think that, yeah, for whatever reason, I'm not sure as far as why my audio, I've checked all my mute buttons and everything, and I'm hearing, system pings and everything. I'm just not getting anything through get response. Let me see if there's anything else here I can do. Yeah, again, I just answered that question as far as how to deal with the high ACOS. All right. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure as far as what the deal.
He disconnected again.
Two last
see that
questions.
he's back.
Okay.
Okay, cool. He's back.
ASIN keywords. So no, I mean, I don't test ASIN keywords when they show up from your automatic campaign, mainly because Amazon back in December, Amazon took away our ability to negative match those as well as target those. So Amazon, month over month, Amazon continues to make progress toward disallowing us from specifically targeting from specifically targeting in our content and our advertising, specifically targeting competitor brand names or product listings. There's plenty of exceptions to that rule, and they're not always consistent in how much, how they enforce that. And there's certainly some tricks around that we teach that are more at the intermediate advanced level, and that's something that I'm working with Near on to have that information as well. Okay, I'm starting to get some repeat questions here from earlier in the webinar. Oh, how to deal with like runaway ASINs that show up in your automatic campaign. So the problem is that you can't really do anything about the ASINs. There's not much that you can do about the ASINs that show up in your automatic campaign. If you have one where your ad is showing up on that other product listing where the ASIN is showing there, then one of the things you can do is, if it's profitable, try to figure out what it is about their listing that is drawing so much audience. If it's not profitable, then one of the things you can try to do is figure out, do they have a unique brand name on their listing or a unique word in their title in their listing, and do a negative phrase match on that specific unique brand name or a specific unique word that is in their title that is not, it's unique to them, it's not unique to the rest of your audience, for instance. And so sometimes that will limit how often your ad will show up for that one and can reduce some of your costs. Okay, so final question. As far as what I recommend for the back-end keywords, and there are some new tools and things that are available, nothing that I offer, but that'll help with back-end keyword optimization or back-end search term optimization. But generally, I'm going to have the words that are not in my title yet are common among my most profitable search terms. So if I have a list of search terms, let's say I have a list of 30 search terms, and I'm selling different water bottles, and so I've got blue water bottle and wet water bottle and bottled water for kids, whatever. There's going to be common words that continue to show up again and again. I'm going to use the unique instance of the commonly recurring words from that list of profitable search terms, and I'm going to make sure that word is in my back-end search term fields if it's not already in my title. Okay. All right, Nir, what direction you want to go with this? I know we've got questions that keep coming in, but somebody says, please address my 3 questions. Okay. Let me find at least one of them for you here. You're saying about negative exact match unprofitable search terms. Shouldn't I address that as, hey, pal, go improve your listing content? What? Okay, let me try another one of your questions. How can I determine whether a jealous competitor is clicking on my ad? You can't. You can make some guesses. Usually you're going to see that when it comes to like click fraud and everything, you're usually going to see that on a specific keyword, not across everything. And it's usually very pronounced as far as number of impressions and number of clicks that you get. Unfortunately, Amazon's not going to do much about that either. So usually I kind of try to sidestep that and go after other keywords and try to reduce my bid on certain keywords like that for the next month or so and then come back to it. Okay, Nir, it's all you.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. I know that you cannot hear me, but thank you very much. Guys, we had a very great chance to hear one of the best in the market, so just want to say thank you very much again. What we'll do right now, we're going to move to the second part of this presentation. I'm going to share with you a few items that are related to the course that we are doing. So I'm going to open just a second the presentation. Okay, just tell me if you can hear me. Oh, I see the chat disappeared. Okay, so I will take it as a yes that you can hear me. Brian just dropped and continue from here. אז אני אעבור לעברית. תכלס, מה שאני רוצה לשתף אתכם זה לגבי הקורס שאנחנו הולכים להעביר, שתכלס כבר התחלנו לפרסם אותו. קורס המבוא שלנו, קורס המבוא שלנו כבר, כמו שאתם רואים, יצא לאוויר לפני בערך שבוע, היה לנו יותר מ-300 חברים שצפו בו, אז תודה רבה, מקווה מאוד שהוא עזר לכם. הוא בהחלט ממצא, מידע מאוד מאוד בסיסי, אבל בהחלט מידע שעוזר. בקורס הזה דיברנו על שטחי פרסום, איפה אמזון מפרסמים אותנו, דיברנו על סוגי התאמה, מנוע חיפוש של אמזון, קצת דיברנו על מה זה ברוד, מה זה אקזקט ומה זה פרייז, די הרחבנו את הנקודה שבריין דיבר עליה, וכמובן דיברנו גם על בעיות בפרסום, ואיך עושים טראבל שוטינג בסיסי, שגם כאן בריין נגע בחלק מהבעיות האלה. דבר ראשון, אני רוצה להגיד לכם תודה, היה לי ממש כיף. לא כל כך טריוויאלי שכל כך הרבה אנשים מקשיבים לי דרך האינטרנט, וממש לא כל כך טריוויאלי שכל כך הרבה אנשים נמצאים פה בוובינר הזה. אז קצת לסכם את הקורס מבוא מבחינת מספרים, אז כשדיברתי עם בריין וגם עם אנשים אחרים, אז שאלתי את השאלה כמה זמן משקיע מוכר, שכבר מוכר באמזון, לא מוכר מתחיל, בכל מיני מקומות. וכמעט כולם בצורה מוחלטת אמרו ש60% מהזמן הם משקיעים בפרסום ובמחירות, שזה די הזוי, שכולנו רצים על ריוויוז, ואנחנו רצים על שיפור ליסטינג, ועל תמונות וכל מיני דברים כאלה ואחרים, שבעצם מעקב המחירות והפרסום, גם הפנימי וגם החיצוני, זה מה שמכניס לנו את הכסף, והסיבה שזה החלק שמכניס לנו את הכסף, כי זה בעצם מביא קונים לתוך החנות שלנו. אז אם תסתכלו על החלק הזה, זה החלק שבו היינו רוצים להשקיע את המאמץ. ברור שלחלקנו בהתחלה החלק הזה יותר קטן ולאט לאט הוא יתרחב, אבל לשם אנחנו מכוונים. כלומר, מי שמאיתנו ישלוט בכל נושא הפרסום, גם החיצוני וגם הזרמת תנועה חיצונית, וגם הזרמת תנועה בתוך אמזון, על ידי ספונסר פרודקט, הוא מי שבעצם יצליח לייצר כמה שיותר מחירות, ומוכרים שכבר מצליחים באמזון, באמת פועלים לפי השיטה הזאת. אני נדבר ככה בשתי מילים לגבי הקורס המלא. א', זה הקורס הראשון והיחיד בארץ, שבאמת נוגע בכל תחומי הפרסום, כלומר, מהבסיס הכי פשוט עד לרמה הכי מסובכת. וכשאני אומר הרמה הכי מסובכת, אני מתכוון לאנשים כמו בריין, הוא המנטור האישי שלי, אנשים נוספים שאני מתייעץ איתם. כל המידע הזה מהעולם בעצם מתנקז לישראל דרכנו ודרך הקורס הזה. תשית אני מרגיש זכות גדולה שיש לי את היכולת לדבר איתו ברמה אישית על בסיס קבוע. הבן אדם פשוט מאוד פנומן, כאילו רמות המידע שהוא יודע היא הזויה. אז זה הקורס הראשון והיחיד באמת בארץ שנוגע בפרסום. אנחנו לא עושים פה שום דבר אחר, לא יוטיוב ולא איך להביא מוצר, אנחנו מתעסקים אך ורק באותם 60%. אני לא מזניח את החלק מה-40% הנותרים, אבל אני אומר שאם נצליח לשפר את ה-60% האלה, באמת נגיע לתוצאות מדהימות. הדבר הנוסף שאני רוצה לשתף אתכם זה, כי חלקם כבר יודע, שביום שלישי הבא אנחנו עושים השקה רשמית של הקורס. תודה רבה מאוד כבר ל-20 הנרשמים המוקדמים, שניצלו את ההזדמנות של העלות הנמוכה של הקורס, כי קורס ראשון אנחנו בעצם די נותנים לכם את הזכות של להכיר אותנו מה ברמת האיכות שאנחנו נותנים לכם ומה ברמת הידע. אז תודה רבה לדבר ראשון מאוד גדולה ל-20 הנרשמים המוקדמים, שהבטיחו את המקום שלהם, נהנו ממחיר מוזל ונתנו את האמון שלהם בי. בהחלט משהו לא טריוויאלי ומאוד מאוד מאוד מעריך את זה, אז זה מעולה. דבר נוסף שאני רוצה לדבר עליו, זה בעצם מה יש בקורס הזה, מה הוא מכיל, כדי שנדע על מה אנחנו מדברים. אז דבר ראשון, זה קורס מלא. אני תכף מדבר שם על איך אמזון חושבים, שיש בו 5 מודולים מוקלטים, מהיסודות של אמזון ועד הידע המתקדם והעדכני ביותר. תהיה לנו קבוצת VIP של פייסבוק ווואטסאפ, שבה אני כל הזמן יענה לשאלות, ואני לא מתיימר לדעת את הכל, ומה שאני לא יודע, אני כן מתחייב לחזור עם תשובה, והתשובה, כמו שאתם ראיתם, זה לאנשים כמו בריין ואנשים נוספים שהם תותחי על בתחום הזה. הטבות לחברים בלבד שאנחנו ניתן, זה א' על PPC Scope, שבהם קצת לא נגע בו, אבל זו תוכנה מדהימה שלו, זה בעצם אקסל עצלנים. במקום שאנחנו נצטרך לעשות את כל העבודה באקסל, התוכנה הזאת נותנת את כל המידע, אז אנחנו נותנים 20% הנחה לכל החברים ב-PPC Scope. תוכנת Hello Profit, אני אעשה אולי וובינר נפרד על זה, תוכנה מדהימה, כאילו באמת מדהימה, מבחינת יכולת ניתוח מחירות פר אסין, ולהבין איזה מוצר אני רוצה להשקיע בו יותר בפרסום, איזה מוצר פחות, איזה מוצר אני רוצה להביא, גם על זה 20% הנחה. למי מכם שמעדיפים את השפה האנגלית על פני השפה העברית, אז עוד פעם, אני חושב לעשות רווחים וכסף מקורסים זה דבר נהדר, ולשתף ידע, אבל אני חושב שיותר חשוב זה באמת לתת שירות, כמו שאני רוצה לתת ללקוחות שלי באמזון, אז גם לכם, מי מכם שמעדיף את השפה האנגלית, דרכי אתם יכולים לקבל 10% הנחה לקורס של בריין. הקורס עצמו עולה $1,000, ולאחר ההנחה אתם תקבלו אותו $900, אני אשתף לינקים איך לעשות את זה. שוב, פנו אליי כמה אנשים לגבי אנגלית, בגלל זה אני מעלה את זה כאן. אני אתן טבלת פיבוט לניתוח דוחות, שתוכלו לשפוך לתוכם את המידע בצורה די מהירה, לקבל את מה טוב, מה לא טוב. זה מאוד דינמי, וזה מתלווה ל-PPC Scope. מי שאוהב אקסל כמוני יכול לעבוד בעיקר עם טבלת האקסל, מי שקצת אקסל עושה לו גירודים באור, אז יוכל להשתמש כמובן ב-PPC Scope שהיא תנוחה מעולה. לקוחות חדשים בפיוניר מקבלים הנחה 0.2 מעמלת פיוניר, ובמקום $25, $50 מענק הצטרפות. אז כאן זה בעצם אתם רואים בצד, וראיתם לאורך כל הזמן את התוכן בגדול, מה שאנחנו מציעים. זה 5 מודולים שיוצאים מוקלטים, כל שבוע מודול. השבוע הראשון יהיה ב-27 לאוקטובר, שזה בעצם, סליחה, לספטמבר, שזה בעצם שבוע הבא. טוב, עלות הקורס, אז שאלה תמיד מעניינת. דבר ראשון, מבחינת תשלומים, פתחתי לכם את כל האפשרויות, אם זה פיוניר, למי מכם שיש, שזה ישירות מחשבון האמזון שלנו, אם זה העברה בנקאית, אם זה כרטיסי אשראי או פייפל, הכל פתוח, הכל זמין. מחיר מלא של הקורס, תמכרנו אותו ב-2,997, לרשומים באתר, עד לאחר ה-27 לחודש, מי שיהיה רשום באתר שלנו יקבל את זה ב-597, והמחיר מוזל כרגע, בפועל, למי שנכנס לאתר שלנו הוא 497. כל המחירים האלה הורדנו אותם, וחזרנו בעצם למחיר ההשקת חברים, שהיה בהתחלה, מחיר מוזל לתקופת הוובינר ובעצם עד לחצות, יהיה 1,500 שקל, שזה יוצא סדר גודל של $400. הקישור שאתם יכולים להשתמש בו זה מה שאתם רואים כאן, גם אותו אני אשלח לכם בצ'אט, אני אשלח לכם גם באימייל. הוא מביא אתכם בעצם לדף ההרשמה שהוא מוסתר וייחודי אך ורק לוובינר, לשעות הקרובות. הוא נותן לכם את היכולת לרכוש את הקורס בעצם בדי מחיר רצפה לגבי מה שהוא השווי האמיתי שלו. אז אם יש לכם שאלות, אני אשמח לענות. כן, אני אשלח את המצגת של בריין לאימייל לכולם, למי שנמצא ברשימת תפוצה. אני אשלח גם את ההקלטה של הוובינר הזה. עוד שאלות? באמת, תודה חבר'ה, מאוד מוערך, כאילו השעה מאוחרת, לא טריוויאלי בכלל, 1.5 שעות פה אנחנו יושבים מול מחשב. רואה שכמה אנשים רושמים שאלות. תודה רבה, מעולה. כן, קורס המבוא נמצא באתר שלנו, האתר שלנו אני גם אשלח את הלינק לקורס המבוא, כדי שיהיה לכם אותו. אני אתחיל לתת לכם את הכישורים, גם פה בצ'אט וגם בזה. אז לגבי ההרשמה הישירה לקורס, זה ההרשמה הישירה לקורס, הרשמה במחיר מוזל עד סוף הערב. לגבי האתר אינטרנט שלנו, בעצם אתם רואים אותו, זה sponsorproductmaster.com, תוכלו להירשם שם, ובעצם לקבל את קורס המבוא, שהוא בעצם 5 סרטונים ללא עלות. זהו זה. עוד שאלות, או שפשוט מאוד נקפל וכל אחד ילך למשפחה הנהדרת שלו, או יותר נכון למיטה. או להמשיך לעבוד כמוני, להמשיך לחפור. שאלות נוספות? כן, ששרון רושם איתנו פה משהו. רן פרנקל, מה פלוס אומר? פלוס פלוס בתכנות זה אומר עוד אחד. הקורס מתחיל ב-27 לאוקטובר, לספטמבר סליחה, זה יוצא בשבוע הבא, אני חושב שזה יוצא יום שלישי, אם אני זוכר נכון. כן, זה יוצא יום שלישי שבוע הבא, יהיה את ההשקה הרשמית, מי כבר שנרשם, הודענו לו על זה, ומי שירשם יקבל גם, ונמשיך משם. בטעות, אוקיי. אז אני מחזיר לך את הפלוס אליך. טוב, חבר'ה, דבר ראשון, תן לי כאן, דבר ראשון אני רוצה להגיד תודה ענקית לבריאן ג'ונסון, זה ממש לא מוערך, לא טריוויאלי שבן אדם כמוהו יבוא וישקיע יותר משעה. דרך אגב, אני באמת, בכנות, משלם לו סדר גודל של $750 לייעוץ, שזה היה בהתחלה, עכשיו אני משלם לו קצת יותר, אבל בעלות חודשית. מי ששאל פה כמה שאלות, לא זול, אבל שווה כל דולר, אין ספק בכלל. טוב חברים, אז ערן, אתה רוצה לרשום עוד פלוס? הקורס הוא בעצם מודולים ברשת, הקורס הוא מודולים ברשת שהם משוחררים כל שבוע. למשל אני אדבר על המודול של השבוע הראשון שהשתחרר, זה 12 שיעורים מוקלטים, חלקם סדר גודל של 20 דקות פלוס, חלקם קצת פחות. בנוסף יש את קבוצת ה-VIP גם לצ'אט בפייסבוק וגם בוואטסאפ, שהוא תמיד יהיה פתוח, ומי שכבר מכיר אותי יודע שאני זמין ועונה. אנחנו גם נעשה וובינרים, אני רואה שזה כוח מאוד מאוד חזק ונותן הזדמנות, בוובינרים הבאים אנחנו גם נייצר את היכולת לשמע. מקווה שזה יעבוד כמו שצריך, כדי שתוכלו לשאול אותי שאלות, ושוב פעם, שאלות שלא יהיה להם תשובות, אני מבטיח לכם דבר אחד, שאני אחפור עד מרכז כדור הארץ כדי להשיג את התשובה, אם היא קיימת כמובן. מה שאתה רצית לשאול שאלה? בכיף, ערן, שמח ששאלת. זה וובינר ושאלות תשובות פעם בשבוע, אני בהחלט אשקול את זה בחיוב, זה קורס של 5 שבועות, אנחנו נעשה את המקסימום כדי לתת לכם את התמיכה הזאת. אני יודע שזה מידע עם הרבה ידע טכני, אני חושב שבגלל שהוא עם הרבה ידע טכני די אפשר להעביר אותו בתוך וובינרים מוקלטים, אבל בכיף, אני אעשה בהחלט מאמץ שזה גם יהיה פעם בשבוע. אמיר, תודה על הרעיון. דרך אגב, פידבקים הם תמיד מתקבלים בברכה אצלי, בצד שלי. אני מאמין שהידע נמצא אצל כולם, לא רק אצלי. הקישור לסרטונים נשאר פתוח גם אחרי הקורס, כן, הוא יישאר פתוח גם אחרי הקורס, הוא שלכם. הוא שלכם בעצם, אנחנו נעשה מעין איזה הגנה שלא תוכלו לחלוק סיסמאות ודברים כאלה, אבל כן, זה הקורס שלכם, רכשתם אותו, סומכים עליכם, מקווים שתהנו ותמליצו לחבריכם, כדי שנוכל לשפר אותו בסיבוב הבא. כן, דוברת. תודה, כווה. בכיף, בכיף. תודה רבה לך. קישור לסרטונים הפתוחים כאן. אוקיי, סבבה. אז אני אעשה את זה. זה בעצם הקישור לסרטונים הפתוחים. זה האתר אינטרנט שלנו, תיכנסו. ברגע שאתם נכנסים, אתם יכולים להכניס את האימייל שלכם, ואז בצורה אוטומטית אתם מקבלים את הסרטונים אליכם הביתה. בעבור בזריזות על מה ילמדו בקורס. טוב, ברמת העיקרון הקורס, כמו שאמרתי, הוא מחולק ל5 שבועות. כאן זה הבוליטים, זה לא הסילבוס האחד לאחד של כל סרטון, יש הרבה יותר שיעורים ממה שאתם רואים כאן. פשוט ניסיתי לרכז את זה. אז מאחר שראינו שיש פה אנשים עם רמת 0, 1, 2 ו-3, כמו שבריין שאל בהתחלה, אנחנו מכוונים להכל, כלומר אנחנו מכוונים לקורס שיקיף גם ידע בסיסי וגם ידע פרטני על טכניקות מתקדמות ביותר שקיימות. אז זה הגדרות כלליות והכנת חשבון, הסבר על אמזון, מה זה הקמפיין מנג'ר, קצת יותר ידע מתקדם על קורס המבוא לגבי סוגי ההתאמה, מתי כדאי להשתמש במה, שטחי פרסום באמזון, האם כדאי לי להיות בדף השני והשלישי, ב-PPC, כן או לא, תופתעו שכן, לעתים שווה לי להיות בדף 2 ודף 3, ולא בדף 1, ואנחנו גם כן נלמד על זה, ואיך בכלל לבקר ולדעת האם זה כדאי. נקודת האיזון, סופר קריטית, קבלו גם איזה אקסל קטן שיעזור לכם לחשב, לא תצטרכו לזכור את זה בעל פה, מתי אני מרוויח, מתי אני מפסיד, קמפיינים, סוגי הקמפיינים, ידני, אוטומטי, כל זה נעבור, עדכוני בידים ונגטיבים, נעבור על זה גם ברמת מתקדם מאוד, כמה שיותר פרטים שאני יכול לתת. שיפור המחירות בעזרת הדוחות, כלומר איך אני משפר את הליסטינג שלי גם ברמה אורגנית, כמו שבריין אמר, הפרסום הוא בעצם כלי ניתוח, הפרסום הוא כלי ניתוח והמחירות הן בונוס, ואנחנו נדע איך להשתמש בניתוח בצורה המיטבית כדי לייצר לנו הכנסה, לאו דווקא רק מהפרסום, גם מהקידום האורגני. ומי שכבר מכיר אותי ודיבר אותי, מבין שאני לא רוצה בהכרח להיות ב-keyword שהוא 2-3 מילים המרכזי בעמוד הראשון, אני מעדיף להיות באיזה 10-15 דפים אחרים בעמוד הראשון, ולהשיג את התוצאות שלי בצורה כזאת. שיפור המחירות נעשה גם כן, קטלוג, מילות חיפוש, גם כלים חיצוניים שיש, שיכולים לעזור לנו. שוב פעם, אני מאמין מאוד מאוד גדול במידע שספונסר פרודקט נותן לנו, שזה בעצם אמזון. איך אנחנו יכולים להרחיב את מילות החיפוש ממה שיש לנו, איך אנחנו מרחיבים מוצרים, זה מאוד קריטי, בסדר? איך אני מרחיב מוצר לנישה שלי ומאיפה אני מוצא, שימוש באקסל, בפיבוט טייבל, מי שירצה לקחת את זה לרמה הבאה, אני אעשה איזה שיעור, יש שם שיעור קצר שמדבר על זה, שמסביר טכנית, דף מחירות איך לשפר אותו, בעיות פרסום, וכאן יש איזה בונוסים של שאלות שמשום מה אני מקבל אותם אין ספור פעמים, ועדיין אין מרכז, מקום אחד שמרכז, אז זה כזה ידע טכני שתקבלו, לא קשור ל-PPC, אבל מה זה ונדור אקספרס ואיך להשתמש בו ומה היתרונות ומתי כדאי לעשות אותו, מה זה ברנד רג'יסטרי, טריידמרק, קטגוריות נוספות, איך אני פותח ולייטנינג דילס, שזה בעצם נקודות כלליות, שזה די כזה בונוס של הקורס. איזה עוד שאלות יש לנו? תודה. תודה, זה מילה מצוינת. רמי, מה קורה? 497 זה המחיר שנתתי בלינק. אני בודק אותך, רמי. המחיר בלינק הוא, אם תגללו, התשלום הוא ליעלון, ואתם תקבלו את זה ב-397. ברגע שתפעילו את הפייפל שלכם, אז הקישור הזה הוא $397. נכון שרשום מדף 497, כי זה המחיר האמיתי כרגע, אבל לכם בלבד, וזה פתוח אך ורק עד חצות. כמובן שיכול להיות שאני אשבר, כמו שנשברתי כמה פעמים, אבל ברמת העיקרון אנחנו רוצים לסגור את זה עד חצות, שתלכו עכשיו ותרכשו ב-$397, 1,500 שקלים. אני רואה שכבר יש לנו 1, 2, 3, 4, וואו, מגניב חבר'ה. 4 רכישות, אוקיי. תודה רבה על האמון, לא טריוויאלי, מאוד מעריך את זה. עוד שאלות? אנחנו כבר ב-24 חברים. משה, תודה. תאמין לי שאני אעשה את הכל כדי שאתה תרגיש את זה גם אחרי שתראה את כל הסרט. ושוב פעם, הקורס הזה נמכר על ידי בריין ב$1,000, לא שאני משווה את עצמי לבריין, הבן אדם עם הרבה יותר ידע ממני, אבל אני כן מחובר אליו איך קוראים לזה? בצינור יניקה, כדי לוודא שאני יודע את הכל. כן, תודה רמי. כן, אנחנו משקיעים, נו, מה נעשה, לא נשקיע שליש ממחיר הקמפיין שלי לחודש, כן, גם אצלי אפילו פחות משליש, אני קרוב ל$2,000, אז אצלי זה חמישית, אני הייתי מחזיר 5 ימים, את ההשקעה הזאת, אם הייתי מצליח לחסוך. דרך אגב, אני כאילו עושה ייעוצים וליוויים, ואני חייב להגיד לכם שראיתי כמה חשבונות שלכם, ויש אנשים שמוציאים $1,200 בחודש על PPC, $800 בחודש על PPC, ללא תוצאות וחבל, כאילו אין סיבה, באמת שאין סיבה. אני לא אומר שהאקוס שלי הוא 10, ממש ממש לא, וגם אני אראה לכם את זה. אני לא חסיד גדול של אקוס בכלל, אני חסיד של יעילות, אני חסיד של מחקר, אני חסיד של חפירה, וזה מה שהספונסר פרודקט נותן לי, אז אני ממש לא מפחד מאקוס 20 או 30, ובמוצרים מסוימים נקודת האיזון שלי היא 47%, אז אני גם לא מתבייש להגיע ל-40% אקוס, אבל אני כן מוודא שאני מייצר הכנסה נוספת משמעותית באורגני. חבר'ה, האורגני זה הכסף האמיתי, למי ששואל את עצמו. והעבודה היא איטית, אבל יסודית, כן, כן, יוני, גם אני. יצא לי להוציא הרבה יותר, גם ביום, דרך אגב. בימים של פרסום אגרסיבי של לייטנינג, גם עברתי את $400 בפרסום, כדי לזרז את המחירות, להיות בכל חור אפשרי. וואו, חבר'ה, אתם סחטן עליכם, אנחנו פה כמעט 2:50 איש נשארו פה על הקו, זה מדהים. טוב, יאללה, אני יכול לקשקש עד מחר נראה לי. אם יש מישהו שאלה שישאל, אני אשתוק רגע. כמו שאני רואה שאתה כותב. נהיה סבלני. טוב, תודה לשתיים הנרשמים הנוספים דרך אגב. יש לנו כבר 6. מגניב. שליש מחיר הקמפיין. טוב, חבר'ה, מי שרוצה להתראות על המתחרים שלו, שיקנה עכשיו. משה, אתה הבאת זה קצת יותר $100, כי ב-27 אני מעלה את זה רק למי שירשם לקורס מבוא, ויכניס את האימייל שלו, יקבל את זה ב-597. מי שלא יכיר אותי, דרך אגב אנחנו יוצאים החוצה, מי שמכיר את האורים, אנחנו נהיה אצלהם ונדבר שם, וגם עוד אצל כמה חבר'ה אחרים, שם המחיר הוא יותר גבוה. כאילו המחיר המלא, ההוגן לדבר כזה הוא לפחות 3,000 שקלים, בכלל בלי מצמץ. אבל כן, מי שרוצה וזה, כמו 6 חבר'ה שהצטרפו, אני מזמין אותו להצטרף. טוב, חבר'ה, נעמתם לי מאוד, מקווה מאוד שנהנתם, אני מאוד 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 נהניתי. אז ניפגש בצ'אט, ניפגש בפייסבוק, ניפגש בוואטסאפ, בטלגרם, whatever, כל כך הרבה מקומות אנחנו מקשקשים שם, אז תודה רבה, תודה רבה, תודה רבה, ולילה טוב. אני אשלח לכולכם באימייל את הפרטים של כל המידע הזה. אז יאללה חבר'ה, להתראות.